Decision Diaries with Lynn and Jami.
So welcome to Decision Diaries. On today's episode, we are going to talk about moving in together. So both Jami and I have done this. You've done this multiple times, but I've only done this one time. So let me provide a little bit about the moving in together. We are talking about moving in together before you are married. And for my family,
wait, aren't you Catholic?
Ooh. Yes. Oh, there's lots of scandals on this one. There are lots of scandals on this one because, we have a great story. We have a story about a priest, so please hang in there. And I will tell you, I've mentioned before that my father is Italian, and my mother also came from a very Catholic conservative family. So very traditional parents. Thinking about their daughter moving in with somebody before getting married was kind of a big deal in my family. It really was kind of a big deal. It's what's interesting is that, my older sister did it, but she was 5 years older than me. And I am at this point, what are we? We're 26?
26, yeah.
Oh, and I should introduce this dashing, adorable, cute guest we have on the show. Who could it be? Who could it be, Jami? Who am I talking about?
I think it's my favorite of your husbands, Brucey.
Yay, me.
Yay. Do you want to introduce yourself, Bruce?
Hi, I'm Bruce.
And I have to give props to Bruce because you guys are going on, 25 years married? That means that for 25 years, you have had to put up with Lynn. And I even said, is he okay talking? She goes, he's married to me. I'm like, all right, so here we go.
Yeah, it's a journey, Jami. It's a journey.
Well, my dad warned you. I will tell you, my dad warned him. My dad said, she's going to be fun. It's not going to be a stable ride, but it is going to be a nice, fun roller coaster. He told you when you asked for my hand in marriage. What did he say to you?
He's just like, it's going to be a fun ride. Enjoy the ride, son. And I'm like, yes, sir.
I'm wondering now if Bruce might also have ADHD and need that dopamine hit. So he's kind of, enjoying everything that comes out of your mouth the way that you and I do.
Yeah.
And what goes into your mouth. That was
That's another story.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, because we've been having a good time.
But back to the squirrel, back to what we were talking about, moving in together. I know you have a story, but can you imagine moving in with somebody that you have never lived with? I can't imagine. Well, and I sort of have a story a little bit like that too, but we'll wait till it's my turn.
Let me tell you, moving in together. Here's what I've learned, or I'm going to say this is what I learned after moving in together, is that moving in together before you get married does not necessarily guarantee that that's going to be a smooth transition. It's almost like it's equivalent to people who say having a child can save a marriage. It's like, no, having a child cannot save a marriage. Moving in together before you get married does not guarantee that you're going to stay married.
Right.
Or that you're going to have a smooth transition after you get married, as I will kind of talk about as we go along with the story. But
so let's get into it, Lynn.
Let's get into it. So you want to talk about when you moved in? I mentioned that we moved in, 26? We were 26?
Yep.
Okay. What about you, Jami?
First time or the second time?
Well, let's go with first time, and then we can talk about the most recent time.
Okay. Well, gosh, there's so much story before the first time. But so I trailed behind you guys and met my ex-husband. Well, I met him when I was 15, but started dating him again when I was 27. And we actually did the long distance thing for 8 months. And then I got a job and moved back to Jacksonville, which was our home, yours and mine. And that's where my ex-husband was working at the time. And I actually, we did not move in together, but not because I didn't want to, but because he did not want to. And so I got my own apartment, and I was definitely, and this is the big joke, and I'm sure it'll be another episode, but I was very clear, as anyone who's already listened for a few episodes can imagine, that I'm like, okay, I got a timeline here. my goal is to be married by 30. I mean, if I had it the way I wanted it, I would have been married by 25 and kids by 30, but it didn't happen that way. So because I am 27, I've got to adjust the plan, just like the virginity plan that I had to adjust. So anyway, this is how the decision was made. We are in my bed sleeping, and we were at that point spending most of our nights together, but paying for 2 different rents.
Oh yeah.
And fire ants come, and I sleep naked,
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Wait,
That
what?
is scary. She sleeps naked and she had fire ants.
It's the best. So so fire ants attack us in bed. And I did not plant them, although, my ex-husband might think so. And I was like, I am breaking my lease. I cannot sleep in this bed. Like the idea of just like, how can you ever be comfortable again? And so the decision was made for us when the fire ants came. And I think, in truth, he obviously had it. He had it in his mind at that point because we had been together. Let's see, I moved in with him in January or February, and we got engaged in March. So, I mean, I think, we were already sort of at that point, but I don't remember the decision to move because I moved into his place, and then shortly thereafter we got engaged. And I did say, is that where we're going? Like I wanted to know along the way because, hey, I got a timeline here. I'm
Oh
now
my God.
28.
You wanted to know
You had a
every
timeline,
day.
didn't
Yeah,
you?
you wanted to know every day. Is that when you guys moved into that townhouse?
Yes, that was
Oh
where
my
he was
gosh.
living.
That was more like a storage closet, and you guys both had so much stuff. I remember
No,
when we went to visit them and we had to sit in like a little bitty spot because
Yeah.
they hadn't unpacked everything, and it was like I was like coming out of my skin because I was like, I cannot sit here this long. I was like, are we going out to dinner? What are we doing? Because it felt like you guys were in a shoebox and it was just full of stuff. I think we got there right when you guys moved in together
okay, well
because
then of course, then
yeah,
that's going to be
yeah,
normal.
yeah.
Plug for my business. But no, what happened was we put a lot of stuff in storage because we were coming from 2 places into one. And this was, back before you sold all your stuff on OfferUp and, Facebook Marketplace and all of that stuff. There's no internet really. So we got a storage unit. I moved into his place and but with the idea that we were going to be staying together and not staying in this 1-bedroom apartment. And shortly after that, so we got engaged in March, and then we signed, I want to say we signed we found and built a house like 2 weeks after we got engaged. It was like bam, bam, bam. And so we lived in that until our house was ready in November. And then it was really nice when so we're engaged at this point. And what we did was we moved into separate bedrooms in our first home together until the wedding. So that was going to be, I think that might have
we
even
have an
been
episode about
that
that.
might have been your advice. I don't know, someone's advice, but it was really good advice to make it really special. And so we slept in separate rooms for a couple of weeks leading up to us getting married. So we lived together in our first home, but not in the same room until we were married.
Interesting. So let me tell you when Bruce and I decided to move in together, and I'll share my side of it, and then I'm gonna go to my husband.
I think we should call Adam and get his side, right?
Well, so yeah. So let me tell you, I at this point am very poor. The store is not doing well, and I had to rebound back into my parents' house. Ugh. So I'm in the house with my parents, but I'm not spending nights at my family's house. Instead, I am sleeping at my husband's apartment, and I'm kind of commuting. I'm doing the whole clothes. I have maybe a drawer, but I'm doing clothes like I'll bring an outfit and then I go back to my parents' house, and then I grab another outfit, and then I might shower at my parents' house. And I'm grabbing one outfit at a time. And keep in mind, I'm very poor. Well, I had these gorgeous pairs of shoes, Enzo's. I don't know if you remember Enzo's. They're like
Vaguely.
Prada. I mean, it was kind of like Prada shoes, very, very expensive shoes that I had purchased when I used to have money, and I love these shoes. And so one time I was bringing an outfit over to Bruce's house, Bruce's apartment, and I accidentally, like, that shoe dropped out of my
Uh,
little overnight bag
uh,
and was in the middle of the road. And so I woke up the next morning, couldn't find my shoe, walked outside and saw it had been run over multiple times. And I was just like,
oh.
I have had it. We've got to do something. I have had it. So, Bruce, talk about where you were living and
I had an
what.
apartment in Atlantic Beach. I had a great apartment in Atlantic Beach when I first moved in because my roommate was always with his girlfriend, and so it was like I had the whole apartment to myself. And it was awesome. And then about, I don't know, about 2-3 months later, he decided he wanted to move back in full time and stay at the apartment with his girlfriend.
Uh,
And then he invited his family over for Christmas, and the whole Christmas holiday was a nightmare. And they were stay up all night long, and we both had to work the next day. It was just awful. And I was tapped out, and he came to me and he says, "Hey, you guys were a little loud last night, and we're just watching TV in our bedroom." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah, my parents said something about it. 2 nights prior, they were partying all night long till like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "That's it, I'm done." And they wanted the apartment to themselves anyway, so it was just like, fine, I'm over it. And so that's when we decided to have the conversation about moving in together.
Yeah, and
wait. Had it been discussed at all prior to that? Like, had you ever, as you're going back and forth, had you ever said, "Hey, when are we?" Were you
No,
like me?
because
Like, what's the timeline here?
we were not talking about it. I think if I recall, it was the cohabitation things. Like, we're not going to cohabitate. We're not going to cohabitate. We're not going to cohabitate.
Yeah, it's not going to go over well with
It's
my
not going to go
family.
over well with our family. And we thought, I wasn't Catholic yet, but she was very Catholic and still is. And we just weren't going to cohabitate. It just was not something on our radar screen.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It kind of at the time wasn't as trendy as it is now. I would say that our son and his girlfriend most likely will do it. I think they will do it because of financials, and it just doesn't make sense. And we were kind of in the same boat. It was half a financial decision. It was also half of my parents didn't want me in the house. I think at that point they were like, it might be good because we really don't want you back either. You're 26 years old. You should be out of the house.
And what, I have to say this as a parent, with 20-year-olds. I'm not really comfortable knowing that my daughter's going and spending the night at her boyfriend's house. I don't want to see it. It's kind of like, no.
Really?
So if you're not there, yeah, I it's funny. I'm traditional in ways that are unexpected, and I don't know. And it's funny because my parents aren't traditional.
Right.
I can't explain it,
but
shocking. I know.
Every now and then, Jamie, you shock me. That is shocking. In fact, we need to talk about that because I will tell you that my son and his girlfriend, they move back and forth. He's in Austin, and in between semesters or, summer semesters, she moves to Austin to intern. And, her lease never quite lines up. There's always like 2 weeks where her lease ends and, she wants to spend that time with our son, and her school's not starting yet. And so, she stays for a couple of weeks with him in his apartment and helps him pay the rent.
Right. I'm not talking about them moving in together. I'm talking about coming in and out of my house.
You mean spend the night at your house?
No. See, I'm still not there. No, what I mean is she's home from school and she will go out and spend the night. And, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'd rather her, although it's not going to happen because she's just home from break, but I'd rather not have to see her coming in and out and knowing, okay, it's not really the walk of shame anymore, but okay, I know what you did last night.
Oh my God. Well, it's better than them doing it at your house, which I can tell you that's happened at mine.
No, I'm not there. I'm like, that's like you know. But anyway.
Wow, that's
you're getting me all flustered.
So okay, so let me move forward and say that because of my shoe and because of the living situation.
Right.
And let me tell you, I think one thing we forgot to mention is that the apartment that Bruce is renting is actually owned by his roommate.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to note, that it's owned by his roommate. So his roommate feels very much like I am both landlord and roommate. So what happens, what I decide happens. And, one night we came home and they were like repainting the living room, or they were like taking down wallpaper.
Stencil.
Oh yeah, they were
around
stenciling
around,
and it was just
rail.
kind of like, oh, well, you're paying for rent, but you are clearly a temporary guest. This is their home, and that's a creepy feeling. So we know we're going to move in together, and now we're gearing up for the big.
It was a conversation for us,
it was a conversation. So I had I had told my mom that we're going to do this. And so my mom was like, well, Bruce needs to come over. And
this is news to me, Jamie.
Have a conversation with your father.
Oh.
Like that needs to happen. So my mom and I are sitting at the kitchen table and Bruce comes over.
Oh, hold on. No. That ain't the way this went down.
I need to ask a question. I need a clarifying question first, though. Where are we in proximity to the engagement at this point? Like, where are you guys?
We're a ways off. I mean, we know we're going to get married.
Right.
I think.
How do you know you're going to get married, but you're way off from being engaged?
Because her sister was engaged.
Oh yeah. We didn't even mention that. So I think we were dating around 2 months.
About 3-4 weeks.
About 3 or 4 weeks. We went to my sister's. We went to a dinner to talk about my sister's wedding, and I went to the bathroom, and my sister followed me to the bathroom, and then she threatened me in the bathroom and said, "You better not get engaged while I'm engaged." She didn't want me to overshadow her engagement. And I said, "What are you talking about? Bruce and I have just been dating for 4 weeks." And she's like, "I see it."
Oh, all right.
So
that's a true story.
That's a true story. So we agreed to honor her request, that I didn't want to overshadow her. And we decided to honor her request. Plus, I did feel like my mom needed a year to plan. And so
I was at the wedding.
Janet needed a year. She needed to get her dress designed.
I can't wait till we talk about the wedding, but no, we're going back.
Talk about the wedding. So just so you know, we feel it. We know it. We're telling everybody that we know we're going to get married. I mean, we make jokes about it all the time, but we're keeping it on the down low for my sister. And again, we're back to, financial, me just wanting to be independent.
Mr. Girolamo is there.
So Lynn,
this is great.
Lynn tells me, hey, we're going to have lunch over at my dad's house. He's going to barbecue something up. This is January. Nobody barbecues in January because it's so cold. And I'm like, okay, whatever. We'll just have dinner with him. That'll be cool. And we go sit down at the dinner table, and Lynn and Janet were in there, and Russ, her father, and all of a sudden, Lynn and her mother just kind of fade away. And there's this 6-7 foot tall guy, Italian guy, coming at me saying, "Hey, I hear you and Lynn are thinking about moving in together." I'm like, "Yes, sir." I'm like, "Oh my God, never." And I had no escape. There was nowhere for me to run. I was kind of pinned in the corner, and the table between us. And I think he says, what's your intentions with my daughter?" I'm like, "Well."
Did he say that really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah, it just makes financial sense." I said, "I don't like it." I kind of threw it out there like that, kind of trying to soften the blow a little bit. But and he's like, "Well, I don't like it at all. I won't step foot in your apartment. I won't do anything."
That's another conversation.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
I mean, we'll talk about that in just a second.
But I won't step in your apartment. I won't do this. I won't do that. I said, "I understand." He goes, "Well, I don't believe in it. I don't think you guys should be moving in together before you get married." And I just had to take it. And it was interesting.
Well, I think he also mentioned, the cow and the milk, and the milk for free, and you need to marry her. And I think you mentioned that you were going to marry me like within the year.
Yeah,
or so.
The plan was, and I kind of mentioned, I was like, as soon as Lisa's wedding's over, I will, I'll be coming to you with an engagement ring.
Aww.
And, yeah, I mean, I love your. I made sure he knew I loved his daughter. I wasn't gonna. There was no ill intent. I wasn't trying to, get the
Get any free milk.
Get any
Get
free
any
milk.
free milk.
And,
Yeah.
and I
So,
also want to throw in, that, remember, like when we were growing up, there are no cell phones. And so you call a family, and when I was younger, there was like one line for the whole family until, you were actually the family that had two lines. So you called, hello, Mr. or Mrs. blah, blah, blah. May I speak with your, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
there was an intimidation back then of parents. And definitely your father is,
He's
is he
intimidating.
6'7"?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
always 6'7".
yeah.
He's a
He's
big guy.
tall.
He's a big man.
So,
He's
all right.
intimidating, but anybody who has met my father, he's very lovable, but yeah, he's loud, he's intimidating. He even intimidates our dog from time to time. Our dog growls at him. Our dog doesn't growl at anybody. But
Okay, so let's go
he's
back to
safe.
the tape. So Bruce has assured him, I have good intentions. I'm not looking for free milk, even if it's chocolate milk.
So
you
Jamie, this point, the next point is really important that I want people to understand. When my father declared to Bruce that I will not step foot in that apartment, he kept that promise. So what would happen after we moved in? What would happen is my dad would invite me out to lunch, and he would pull up downstairs and he would honk the horn. And I would wait until he honked the horn about 2 or 3 times. And then I would walk down there and I would be like, oh, Dad, thanks for waiting. I had to get dressed. I was like, Bruce and I were just like, having sex, and I just had to get dressed. And he was like, oh, like I was just like torture for him. I rubbed it in.
So
And then
funny.
one time he gave me something, or it was a heavy box, and he was like, well, I can help you carry it up. And I was like, oh boy. And he carried it up the stairs, and then he handed it to me without crossing the threshold.
That is
And I
funny.
was like, okay. So the funny part about it was right after we got married, when he carried up our wedding gifts, he crossed the threshold. It was a different apartment, but he crossed the threshold and he was like, oh, this is pretty nice. And so it was official. And when, occasionally my dad has his new girlfriend over at his house, and we make jokes about, well, if you guys move in together, I'll have to honk the horn from outside. So yeah, that truly happened.
That's funny.
Did you guys get any pushback when you and Adam moved in together?
No. I mean, again, I'm not from a conservative, Catholic background. And no, I did not. My mom and stepfather were living together before. They were engaged, I think, when we moved in as a family, but they were living together before the wedding. And even my grandparents would have even come. But when we were first living together, you had to go upstairs, and my grandfather had emphysema, so there were not going to be any stairs that were climbed. But no, we got no pushback. And I mean, as Adam will say, I definitely drove the bus, but and I don't want to take the tone of the conversation down, but he had.
Well, I have a funny one.
His father had passed away shortly. Well, was diagnosed with cancer shortly after we started dating. And I think that really changed his trajectory. I don't know that. And he will say that he doesn't know that he would have gotten married had that not happened. He was a sociologist and wasn't really sure that he believed in a monogamous relationship. And I'm not going to say that we did not have an open relationship. Just he wanted kids and felt like that was, the traditional way was going to be the way to go. But I don't know how it all would have played out. But we had a good run. We were married for 15 years, and we had some good ones, and then we had some not good ones.
So I'm gonna take us back to where you talked about the phone line, because this is a really important part of the conversation. So Bruce and I move in, and let me just describe this apartment. It is a shit box.
Oh my God. We're going here.
We are talking about, I think we paid $230 or $300.
$300 a month.
And I also have to say, at this point in our lives, Bruce is not making a lot of money, and I am barely keeping my head above water with the store. I have also taken on a second job, and I'm starting to put an employee in the store because I've gone back to computer software. So I'm starting to get more of a recurring salary so that we can cover our rent. But our rent was like $235. We did not, three. We did not have central heat and air.
Wow.
We had a little air unit in Florida. It was terrible. Our floor was so wobbly that a ball could continuously roll.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, you could like roll that ball and later on we add a dog and that just entertained our dog. But and then we had a kerosene heater that we were scared to light because we thought it would just blow up the apartment. So we ended up with just like a little heater. We had a mattress, typical on the floor. I mean, it was not, my mom didn't even want to decorate it, which is amazing. She never offered to decorate it. She was like, nope, which I know they just weren't like all in with us moving in together, but we had one landline, right? One landline and an answering machine. So I decided to record, this is Bruce and Lynn's house. Later on, when we get engaged, and we're trying to work with the Catholic Church, our priest hears that message and declines to marry us.
Well, he leaves a message. He leaves a message on the phone line, on the answering machine, saying, "Hey, it sounds like you guys are living together, and I'm not going to marry anybody that's cohabitating together. So, goodbye." Yeah. And that's the way it ended. It was Lynn was crying.
I remember this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it was so super judgy. And what's really interesting is that he had married. We tried to use the same priest my sister used because he had married my sister and her husband, and they had cohabitated together, and he had agreed to marry them. And so it was weird that he had changed his mind. So just to let you know, it did not end well for that priest, and I'm not going to get into details, but it did not end well for that priest. He didn't do anything with children. I just want to put it out there.
That's good. Good. Okay.
He did, I think, ultimately decide that he enjoyed the company of men. So that, so he may have left the priesthood, or I'm not quite sure whatever ended up happening, but he did leave Jacksonville and return back to, I guess, wherever he was from. And then even funnier, we have our kids in elementary Catholic school. We meet a couple. We are having conversation about living together
and where we got married.
And they had the same thing happen to them with the same priest.
Wow.
True story. Small world. They had lived together. They did the answering machine.
Well, maybe
thing.
It was sort of like, I don't want you to rub my face in it. Like, don't ask, don't tell.
I don't know, but what's interesting about what I will say, and you probably don't know this, Jamie, but what's interesting about the Catholic Church is they're not in denial, right? So when we go later to Engaged Encounter, which I do want to do an episode on, we fill out this sort of SAT test. And on the SAT test, there's a section there that says, do you currently live together? And Bruce looked over at me and he was like, hey, are we filling out this section? Are we lying?
I was cheating on the test.
and I go, we're gonna be honest, and we're gonna fill out this section. And so the Catholic Church knew people were living together. This was becoming very common, I think, in that time period. And so they had added a section to the test, and we took it. And at the Engaged Encounter, we had a whole group of people that all lived together, and we all hung out.
Yeah, out of the 20 couples, I
all you cafeteria Catholics.
Yeah, out of 20, there was probably at least 10 that were.
There was 50% that were moving.
Right. And I wonder what that percentage would be now.
It's got to be.
It's got to be like 90%. It's apartments are too expensive. I mean, at some point, I think even like apartments are so out of control right now that I wouldn't be surprised if like two couples decided to like, you guys take this side of the apartment and we'll take that side of the apartment. And we'll just have a common area.
So let me ask you, after you move in together officially, do you remember the change in your relationship? Like any?
Oh, it was a sex party. It was a sex party. It was fun, and we were poor, and it was fun. And we were so poor, Jamie. How poor were you? Like we were so poor that I remember one time we were turning over couch cushions to get change so that we could get a Blockbuster movie. And I think a Blockbuster movie at the time was like $2.50 or $3.
Wow.
And we were like going through change to get a Blockbuster movie. And then even worse is that we were in San Marcos, so we're close enough to downtown that U2 came in town, and we were so poor we couldn't get tickets to U2, so we had to listen to U2 through our window. And that's when he was kind of like, I never want to be this poor again. I'm like, I don't want to be this poor again. I'm going to go back to software. I'm going to close the store. We have got to earn money because we're going to go to a U2 concert in the future.
Aw, have you been to a U2 concert?
Not me.
He has not. When we went to New York and we took our boys, the prices we weren't willing to pay it for Madison Square Garden.
But a little too poor for 4 of us.
But I've been to a lot of U2 concerts all for free because other boyfriends took me.
So you want to hear my latest move-in story? Okay.
Yeah,
of course.
So I actually just moved in with my boyfriend officially in June of 2023, which is it's now August, just to date it. So this is what, again, back to the I know what I want and I'm not afraid to ask for it. When we started dating, I was very clear. So we're in California, in San Diego, and I am a single mom running a business and 3 children. And when Brian and I started dating, 1 in college and then 2 in college, and so I knew that living on my own in California was just not what I wanted. So from a financial perspective, but I also recognize that I'm a relationship person. I mean, and we talked about my Cinderella body in an earlier episode. I rocked it, and I could have dated almost any night of the week and gotten free meals. That's not who I am. That's just not who I am. And so I was really clear with him when we started dating, like, I want to be living with somebody. And if that's not where you see yourself, then this isn't going to work. And actually, I should say I had a previous relationship, my other significant one that I mentioned, number 12 in the 51st dates. I would ask somebody towards the beginning of dating, what are you looking for? Because I was, again, looking for a long-term relationship, and I should have defined what that was a little better. What I discovered from him was he never wanted to live with someone ever.
Ooh,
he had done it. Nope. His parents didn't have a good relationship. He had tried living with someone when his kids were younger. It didn't go well, and that was just not going to be for him. So I was like, okay, I would like to ultimately get married, but living together is like a must. If that's not what you want, then we're not going to work out. So I was a secret actually to his daughter for quite a while, and so he was very, very protective of her. So let me just say this. We had decided my lease was going to be up this summer and July of 2023, and I did not want to renew my lease. And he was month to month at this point because he had some issues with his apartment. And his daughter didn't really start to even feel comfortable with me until like maybe January or a little earlier before Hanukkah. So, but it was not, but I kept thinking we would take a vacation together. I would spend the night at his house. She'd get to know me. That did not happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was spending time over there, but he wasn't comfortable with me spending the night. So when his daughter was there, I only spent the night twice. Once was to get to the airport because he lived closer to the airport and I was flying out. And once was finally Jamie's going to spend the night. But I was like, as I mentioned, I like to sleep naked, fully clothed, on top of the bed, door open, like nothing's going on here. And so it was really funny when we decided that we were going to start looking to either rent or buy a house, whichever came. And I don't know how the Florida market is, but in California, it's like the greatest race. So to give you perspective, when I was buying a house with my ex-husband, when we moved to California, we had to put in 8 offers until we got a house. So wow. It was like, here's my firstborn child. It was really, really hard to get a house. So this market was even harder. And he had sent me to go look at an open house that he had looked at. And I brought my daughter in on a Saturday after just to like run by after I had done errands. And she walks in and she's like, we can have a house like this. And I'm like, well, we can have it if we're with Brian. It's not anything that I could ever have on my own. And we both love it. It's a perfect space for us. And I want to bring him back, the next day because I've got my real estate license. Let me take him in. And the agent said that the owner worked from home and we couldn't get in. And this is relevant, by the way. Anyway, the next week he goes and looks at it with his daughter and they love it. And we actually put an offer in. So it was the only house we looked at and we got the house. So for me, that was definitely a sign.
That was a sign. Yeah.
It was absolutely a sign because as I tell my kids all the time, nothing needs to be forced. And
like marriage.
Right. Nothing, yeah, exactly.
Well, you bring up some really good points because, when Bruce and I moved in together, we didn't come in with any, other than my store, which was kind of like my child. We didn't really come in with anything. I mean, we had nothing. I still have my Mazda 323. I have no debt. I find out after moving in with him, has quite a bit of debt.
Somebody had to take her out, Jamie.
Yeah. Some of the debt that I attributed to, some of the debt that his ex-girlfriend probably attributed to that I have to pay off. Oof. So moving in together when you have children, when you have exes, when you have a business, I mean, that is a lot of, and then when you're in California in a tight real estate market, I mean, all of those things coming together all at once at the same time. I mean, to me, that's like act of God, right?
Oh,
I mean,
100
meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, I have felt very much about our relationship, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But in terms of moving in together, it's been very interesting. So prior to moving in together, we had never spent more than 10 days together. We had taken a trip to Hawaii a year into our relationship, and we had spent like 10 days all total between leaving for the airport and getting back. So we had never really spent a lot of time together. Our children had never been in the same house. They had, been together a couple of times. We'd never taken a vacation together. So it's been an adjustment for sure. And, definitely want to do an episode on deciding to blend families, although we are not quote unquote a family, define how do we define families these days? But I will say this, the first week was horrific.
What happened?
Horrific. Well, so my business, as I've shared, and I'm like, do I name it? Do I not name it? Because this is not a plug for my business, but so my business, Silver Linings Transitions, help for the most part. We do senior and specialty moves. So when a senior is moving out of their home, they are typically going into a smaller, easy to maintain home, which could be a senior community. It could be to live near family. It could be 1-story living, because in California, everything is 2-story, it seems like. And so we have to help them downsize or right size is the new word, and get to that space. Well, when you're blending family, there's only one kitchen and there's 2 kitchens and there's only one garage and 2 garages. Right. And so the kids' rooms, those are easy because the kids' rooms just become the kids' rooms. Although in my situation, we don't have a guest room. It's California. So I have my youngest daughter is having to share her room. It's a bonus room, so it's huge. But so that's the guest room / Addison's room, and that's a whole other, and she's 15, so throw that into the mix. But the downsizing process or the combining has been really stressful, and I've also learned that my boyfriend does not do change well, and so for him. Uprooting his whole life, and he holds on to everything. I thought I was sentimental, but he holds on to everything. So we still have a garage filled with boxes, and I am someone that if you put too much in my space, it overwhelms me.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest adjustment. But I will say that what we ended up doing, which was not the plan, was he ended up taking the office upstairs, which was supposed to be my business office because I run my business from the house. And I actually shifted down into the living room, which who uses a living room anyway? So it's actually it's great because I have a bigger space, and people sort of just don't even look at it. And I changed the furniture to match, the colors of my office, but that was once we worked out him not having to get rid of his stuff. It's been good, but I actually was telling somebody the other day that, when you move into with someone, it's a big, like, you just don't know how it's going to go.
No.
And I have to say, we're both pleasers. So we both have always been the one in our relationship that wanted to take care of the other person. So living with a pleaser, it's just been wonderful. I mean, really, like and he's gone. He's in Hawaii with his daughter, and I've had the house to myself. And when I was married, I would be like, woohoo! I got the house to myself, and I miss him, which is like, that tells me that I
that's a good sign. Of course, you're in the moving in honeymoon stage. I mean, it's all fresh and new, and when we were living together. Before we were married, even before we were engaged, we had a healthy rhythm of going to work, coming home, and then again, because we were poor, we were very selective about the food that we were purchasing at the grocery store, because we were really down to a very tight budget.
Wow.
So, we knew what we were going to cook was going to be a lot of rice, a lot of pasta. And, we were going to eat a portion of it, save a portion for the next day. We weren't eating out at all. So we would both get home and we'd both cook in the kitchen. We both clean in the kitchen, because there's nothing else to do, because we also don't have cable. We didn't have
there's
cable.
nothing else to do. Didn't you just say that you were?
Cable.
Oh, we did have cable. Okay,
Wait.
we had cable, but I imagine there wasn't probably a lot of content.
We were doing other things.
We were doing other
That's
things.
what I said. I remember day glow lights, and I can't wait till we start getting into the
yeah. No, we
sexcapades.
get really creative, but I will say, in between doing things, we were equally doing chores. Now, after we get married and we return home from our honeymoon, everything changes.
You better
And
cook for me,
so,
woman.
yeah. And so that's when I tell people who are moving in together that it doesn't always stay in the same rhythm. For something happens after you get married, and something about the permanence of, you've gotten married, that when you're moving in together, I think we were somewhat on our good behavior. Now, I'll also say that there was a moment when we were fighting. Remember, we were fighting, and we were having a big blowout.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. We were having a big blowout, and along comes my maid of honor. She ends up being my maid of honor, but along comes Beth, who comes over to our apartment when Bruce is not there, and she says to me, well, if you and Bruce are having a fight, the best thing that you can do is come with me to Hilton Head. And she's got my suitcase out. I don't know if Bruce is at work. I don't know where Bruce is, but she's got my suitcase out. And she's like, here, just, come with me to Hilton Head. It's, and when you get back, you and Bruce can work it out. And I knew at that moment, I was like, if I go to Hilton Head, when I come back, my shit's going to be in boxes.
I would have been she'd been moved out.
Yeah. I mean, he would have moved me
Wow.
out. Like, if I would have been gone for 3 straight days, and again, we're talking about no cell phones. So if I would have been gone for 3 straight days and I wouldn't have called to the house, even if I would have called to the house, would you have even picked up the phone? I don't know if he would have picked up the phone. Like, even if I
didn't have caller ID, so I would have picked up the phone.
Well, yeah, you would have picked up the phone.
All right,
but
you guys.
what
All
if
right,
I
we need
would
to bring it
have
back in.
apologized?
We need to
What
bring
if
it
I
back
would have
in.
apologized on the answering machine? Would you have
just
forgiven
apologized
me?
on the answer machine. It probably would have been deleted.
That's how bad the fight was. So
I've seen some of your fights. I've refereed some of your fights.
Yeah. So I decided not to go. And he came home that night. And I think it was thanks to Beth pushing me to that point that when he came home, I think I was more willing to listen. And I was like, we've got to work this out. I also really, I don't know why, Jamie, but I felt this way. When we moved in together, I felt like it was a move in, get married, or it was a move in and break up. And I did not want our
Sure.
story to be a move in and break up. I had known other people who had made the decision to move in together and then broke up. And I just found that so sad, almost like a little divorce, because we were scrambling our finances together. I helped pay off his Discover card. So I'm in it for the long haul. If we would have broken up and I would have paid for your Discover card, I would have been very upset
Yeah,
with
but I paid
myself.
for your living expenses
But
for
so let's
12
take
months.
it back, because otherwise we're going to wander and meander, and that's not what we want. We want to help people who are listening. If you are on deciding whether you want to live move in with someone, how do you make that decision?
Yeah, there's so many factors.
For us, it was the timing. Timing was perfect. I was tired of my roommate. I was, you know what? I knew who I was going to be with. I was ready. I was in my mind, I was ready. So that it was smooth as glass to make that decision. It just seemed like the right move. And, everything we talked the day we first met, we talked about cohabitating and that we were never going to do it. And then, 6 months later, we're living together. So,
yeah. And you took one, you faced off with my father.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
to me, that was, that's dedication right there. But what I would say to people is that it's timing. You've got to listen to your heart, and sometimes it's a little bit of practicality, right? It's
Sure.
a little bit of
Very
practicality of
practical.
where you are.
Absolutely.
And as far as being parents of kids that move in together, I think that, obviously Bruce and I are not going to be complete hypocrites. If our son and his girlfriend decide to move in together, I will help them decorate. I might buy things for them, their apartment. I will cross the threshold. I won't
will
peek
go-
downstairs.
I will go in the house.
I will go in the house.
Wow. Listen to
Yeah,
you
that's
guys. You're so
amazing.
involved. Yeah.
So
No, I-
involved.
My parents weren't like Russell at all. My parents were like, they came up and had dinner with us one time and brought wine for one time. It was
Your parents
They
were
had no
over.
problem.
Well, you're
they
also
had no problem.
they weren't Catholic, so
no, they're not
yeah.
Catholic.
So for me, I would say that, exactly what you said. There is a timing factor, there is a practicality factor, and then, things just fall into place if they're supposed to. If you are like going against the current and everything is like slapping you down, listen. And I
Right.
mean, I think that ultimately the tone of the message that we're saying when you're making a decision is, check in with your body and check in with what's going on, and your gut knows. And if you're feeling sick to your stomach, that's your gut saying, hey, this is not a good decision.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Listen to your inner voice. And then, look at your partner too. And, really listen. There could be some bad warning signs there. You might want to listen to those. And there could
Sure.
be some positive things that, like, for example, him saying to my dad, hey, we're going to get engaged within the year. So I knew there was a next step. If you're not comfortable with the next step, now we have friends of ours, Alexa and Bill, that Alexa wasn't totally 100% sure she was going to marry Bill when they moved in together. And they were
Wow.
just down the street, by the way. We were all on the same street.
Okay, we
Oh, you
can't-
want to hear something even funnier?
No,
Our
we're-
apartment was so bad that when it rained, the whole street flooded and we had to move our cars or they would have gotten flooded. So
Oh yeah,
we would
San
wake
Marco.
up in the middle of the
San
night,
Marco.
and when the rain was coming, I would go downstairs and have to move. Both have to move our
So
cars.
let me bring you back to the conversation. Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing I would say is what are the things that people need to consider if they're trying to make the decision about moving in together? Like I would say you need to have a conversation about, roles and who's going to do what. And like my boyfriend and I talked about it. He loves to cook and I hate it. I love to sweep. I like to dust because I like to see the progress of something that I've done. He hates it. So, but I'm very much the guy should take out the trash, which I know is very gender traditional and, but having those conversations about, we talked about the nights that he wants to spend alone time with his daughter and, how that was all going to play out. And then how often I'm going to entertain, because if it was up to me, I'd have people over every night and that's too much for him. And I learned the first time from my ex-husband, you can't do that. You actually have to take into account what someone else needs, whether they're an introvert or an extrovert. So, but having those conversations is, in addition to having it like play out, is important.
What about financing? Have you guys combined your
No,
finances
so
or
we have not. We discussed who was going to pay what in terms of the bills and how it was going to be paid. And he just right now we don't have any joint accounts, and he's just sending me money, and we're just kind of keeping a list. And I don't know how that's all going to play out ultimately. I mean, it can continue this way. It's a little bit different when I think because with my ex-husband, we did just joint accounts, and we didn't even have separate accounts. And my
That's what we
cousin,
did.
that's what you did. My
Yeah.
cousin gave good advice. I liked this one. We didn't end up having to do it in my marriage, but in hindsight, I would have done it. Is that you each have your own account for Mad Money, so that if there's something that you want, that's in your realm of whatever you're able to do. And I like that idea because one of the biggest fights that come up when it is in a marriage or in a relationship is money. So yeah, I just think having those conversations in advance, just like you did with the marriage encounter, really, what is going to come up for us. And I think the advantage to moving in together a second time around is I've already done it, so I already know where my mistakes were, and so there.
Well, I think we've said everything we need to say. That
Yeah.
I like the way you ended that. And just wrapping up, I would say I have no regrets because on that mattress was some good times. And then even I enjoyed torturing my father just a little bit, like
That's
just to
awesome.
play around with that. And then it all ended well for us. I hope it ends well for everyone out there. Love to hear someone's stories. I wish I could find my diary during that time. I probably wrote something about us moving in together, but I maybe have since lost that book. So if anyone is thinking about moving in together and you want to post to our hopefully our website up soon.
Yep. Yeah.
About those decisions, we're happy to hear it. We're happy to have you come on. Or if you want to give us permission, we're happy to read some of those journals. So please share and join us.
And that's
Join
Decision
us
Diary.
when do they join us, Jamie?
When do they join us? Oh, did we say
Yeah.
Sunday? We said we were going to drop Sunday nights.
Sunday
so that
night.
on Monday morning on your way into work, you have something to look forward to.
And we are definitely something to look forward to, right, Jamie?
Oh, ask Bruce.
Absolutely.
Ride to work with your besties, Lynn and Jamie.